SportsLine continuing on here on News Channel 5 Plus. As we mentioned, our phone lines are open, and we go to the phones now and say hello to Ren. Ren, good evening and welcome to SportsLine.
Hey, how are you? How's it going?
Good.
I just want to make a comment on the Rabel coach and the GM. I don't think if the Titans don't make the playoff this year, I think they're see what happened is last year, right before the end of, right after the season, and the first two contracts that were given out was to Rabel and to the GM. They took care of themselves first. So I think that was kind of, I don't know, maybe selfish in a way. And I don't mean to make a negative comment. I'm looking at things from outside.
Well, but that's the owner. That's Amy Adams Strunk making those commitments to the GM and the head coach, and both of them need it. I mean, Vrabel's contract was up, so they had to give Vrabel a contract. So that's where all that comes from. You can't view that as selfish. That's just what it is. So, I mean,
I'm just saying that's the first thing that. It just doesn't seem like they're in the same page. Maybe they are. I don't know. I just want to make that comment. And also, Chestnut is a good running back. That kid really. He's a tough guy. Tough runner. Real good runner. He's intense.
Yeah, he certainly impressed a lot of people in the regular season. Ren, I appreciate the call. I think Mike Vrabel and John Robinson are very much on the same page. The only time I've ever questioned that, honestly, was with the handling of A.J. Brown here in the spring. And I think a lot of people around Nashville and, frankly, around the NFL questioned the way that all played out here. Obviously, John Robinson decided it was an untenable situation and that he had to trade A.J. Brown to the Eagles like he did. I wasn't positive Mike Vrabel was completely on board with that based off of his reaction in the immediate aftermath. But just about everything else I've seen in terms of how they work together and what they think and what they talk about and how they describe the players that they want seems lockstep. And having been around several other coaches in my day and a few other general managers, it's a pretty good synergy between those two guys. Better than you find in most situations. A lot of times you have a GM who's kind of doing his own thing, and you got a coach who maybe doesn't love the GM, and they weren't hired at the right times and all that. But Mike Vrabel is John Robinson's guy. He made that hire. He convinced Amy Adams Strunk to move on from Mike Mularkey after the Titans made the playoffs. And he went out, and he did the interviewing, and he convinced Amy Adams Strunk to allow him to hire Mike Vrabel. And it's worked out pretty well. You got to the AFC Championship game 3 years ago. You've had back-to-back AFC South Division titles. #1 seed in the AFC last year. It's been pretty good with Mike Vrabel at the helm and with John Robinson in charge. Now, everybody's going to look at that A.J. Brown thing. If things don't work out this year, they're going to talk about that for a while. Especially if A.J. Brown then goes on and has a great season or a great couple of years in Philadelphia. But overall, the job that Mike Vrabel and John Robinson have done together has been pretty special. Let's go to line 2. And who do we have here? It's Mike. Mike, good evening.
Good evening, sir. I'd like to make a comment and ask you one quick question.
Sure.
The more I listen to the dialogue about the upcoming season and where our strengths really lie, do we have the beef, the monster, the grit in that offensive line to block and protect this quarterback? Do we have what it takes to meet the competition across the league in that line? Do we have some dominant linemen on offense that are going to hold this thing together? Thank you for your comments. If you have anything to add, we would appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Goodbye. Mike. Thank you very much for the call. That, to me, is the biggest question. When you look at potential weaknesses for this Titans team, it's up front on the offensive line, because for the last several years, the Titans have had some of the best continuity up front of any team in the National Football League. They're not going to have that this year. You have a new starter at left guard, and you have a new starter who's going to be a rookie at right tackle. That's 40% of your offensive line. That's a challenge no matter who you are. And it's trying to live up to the standards that's been set by this offensive line over the last few years. Now, John Robinson has answered this question a couple of times, and he said, look, we kind of have a track record here of having a good offensive line, of being one of the better units in the league. I'm not worried about it. Sort of saying that the culture and the core group sets the tone for what that group is ultimately going to look like. But the Titans' success under John Robinson, even under Mike Mularkey, but certainly under Mike Vrabel, has been about being physical and winning in the trenches. I have no doubt that the Titans' defensive line is going to win in the trenches this year. I have some doubt that the offensive line will be able to win as consistently as it has in the past. I think this line is going to be a pretty good run-blocking line. I do have some concerns about how good it is going to be in pass blocking and if they can keep Ryan Tannehill upright. Because as we mentioned earlier, if Ryan Tannehill goes down, and for all the injuries the Titans had last year when they had to go and trot 91 different players out there on the field, Ryan Tannehill played in every game. He was able to stay healthy. That is a key again this year. Because as fascinating as Malik Willis is and as sensational as he can be at times, there is no doubt the Titans offense is going to take a drop off if Ryan Tannehill goes out and Malik Willis comes in this year, especially early on. So that is a huge question to me, is will the offensive line be ready in that regard? Even Taylor Lewan said, look, we've got a standard here and we believe whoever steps into those roles will play to that standard. And that may be true. There's something to be said for that. And look, Taylor Lewan looks healthy. He's finishing strong on plays down the field. So the hiccup from last year when he was coming off of the torn ACL, I think you feel like you've got a Pro Bowl caliber left tackle back. Ben Jones has consistently been one of the best players and leaders for the Titans. He sets the tone from the center position. Nate Davis has been good at right guard over the last few years. But again, you have two new starters up front on the offensive line. Aaron Brewer, there's pretty much no competition because Jamarco Jones got hurt in training camp. So one of the questions out there is how much did Brewer elevate his play to win the job? And how much did he just kind of inherit the job because there wasn't really any competition at that spot? And what does that mean when he goes up and faces one of the elite defensive tackles in the league? The good news for him is he sees Jeff Simmons every day. So there aren't a whole lot of guys in the league that are much better than that. He should at least be prepared. But will he be ready in the way he needs to be to fill in when he's replacing a Pro Bowler in Roger Saffold from last season? And then on the right side, it's Nicholas Petit-Frere, the rookie out of Ohio State, drafted in the 3rd round. He was supposed to come in and be a swing tackle for the Titans this year because Dylan Radins was supposed to win that job. And last year's 2nd-round pick didn't win the job again. He didn't win it last year. He didn't win it this year. So it's Nicholas Petit-Frere's job. And I think he's a good run blocker. I think he's an incredibly smart kid. But will he be able to hold down the fort on the right side, especially against elite pass rushers? Because make no mistake, until he proves otherwise, the best pass rushers lining up over the right tackle. And Taylor Lewan's going to get the second best guy because they know who Lewan is and what he's capable of doing, and they're going to want to go after the right tackle. They're going to want to go after the rookie. So Nicholas Petit-Frere is going to have to prove himself against the best pass rushers in the league early and often this season. To me right now, if you're looking for one thing that is the key, It's that offensive line continuing to set the tone for the Titans. They've done that for a long time during this stretch of winning seasons, and it is a different-looking offensive line. And if Derrick Henry's going to have a monster year running the football, those guys have to pave the way. And if Ryan Tannehill is going to have a good year throwing to really an unproven group of wide receivers, at least together in this offense, he's going to have time. So it all comes down to that offensive line, to me, to living up to that standard that they so often talk about. It's a different group of guys, same standard. Can they live up to it? All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll get into some college football. Tennessee kicking off the season Thursday night against Ball State. We'll hear from Josh Heupel when we return here on SportsLine on News Channel 5+.